Hey everybody, my name is Justin. Welcome back to our Pit Lane Garage. Today we have decided to keep my E36 BMW behind me here. It will live on to see another track day. And to get things started on its new life, we're gonna install some of the upgrades that I've had sitting around in my garage for many months actually. I've got some new engine mounts, I've got some new transmission mounts as well, and some new tow hooks that we're gonna try to put on today. Of course, we have a number of other modifications I had told you about in the past. They're more like maintenance upgrades rather than modifications. We got some new brake lines, brake rebuild kits to rebuild the brake calipers, and a few other things as well. We're gonna go over those here in just a moment, but let's go ahead and get started. So quick recap first on where we sit with this car. One of my recent videos you guys probably saw, I was considering getting rid of the car altogether due to some of the mechanical and maintenance issues that I've had, which could have resulted in serious safety situations out on the track. We're gonna go ahead and take care of those, get things fixed up. We also talked about potentially doing an engine swap into the car, some kind of V8, like a Mustang 5-liter V8 or potentially an LS Series or Gen 3 V8 from Chevy. But we're not gonna do any of those things, no engine swaps, at least at this point in time. What I've decided to do is keep the car as it is from an engine standpoint. We're gonna keep running this engine, see how long it lives, and try to prep the car for time trials with the NASA Car Club. So in addition to the things that we're going to try to do today, I'm going to try to get those engine mounts installed. We'll see how difficult that is and how much time it takes me. I also have transmission mounts, like I mentioned, that we're going to try to install. The tow hooks will be real quick and easy. And then I also have new steering linkage for the steering rack. I'm going to actually have my shop, my race shop, SCR Performance out here in Loveland, Colorado, take care of that for me tomorrow because I'm taking the car into them to basically get a once-over total complete inspection of the car, see if it is in good enough shape to continue developing, continue going faster while being able to be competitive in a time trial format. So we'll get some of these basic upgrades done here, get it into the shop, see what they say, kind of get some guidance from them on how to prep it for the time trials class, because I have a lot of ideas I want to do to the car, but I'm not sure what is going to affect me from a class or ruling standpoint. So we'll look to those guys for some help. Alright, so enough talk. We're going to get this thing up on the quick jack and start getting after those motor mounts. Let's take a quick look at some of the parts we just talked about. Here are the steering tie rods and boots, which we will have the shop install for us. The AKG Motorsports tow hooks. We have the RevShift polyurethane engine mounts in the beautiful green color. We also have Rogue Engineering polyurethane transmission mounts. Then we have our brake caliper rebuild kits, stainless steel brake lines, and new caliper pistons. With the car up in the air now, we can go ahead and take a look at the bolts that we have to remove to get these motor mounts off. Like I said, I'm going to start with the motor mounts. I don't know if I'll get to the transmission mounts, but we're going to try to get the motor mounts done. So let's take a look at the bolts that we need to get to. They're kind of hidden in the engine bay. See if we can take a look at the one down here first. You can kind of see the bolt down in there. It's in between the header pipes. A little bit closer look for you. So we have to get some extensions and tools down in there to get that one off. The one on the driver's side is similar, except we got to take the air box off and the bolt is kind of right under the throttle body down here, down in that area. We'll go underneath the car and show you the bolts that need to come apart on the bottom side. So up under here is a little easier to get to. You can see the bolt is right up in there. You basically slide a tool through the lower control arm here and you can get to the lower engine mount bolt. And once we have the bolts off of the engine mounts, we can go ahead and get a jack under the car and we basically just lift the engine up a couple inches or so and then we can pull the motor mounts out and then put the new ones back up in, and then bolt those ones down after we drop the engine back down on the new motor mounts. Keep in mind you will need long extensions like these ones in the photo to get to the engine mount bolts, and I also highly recommend some PB Blaster to loosen up the engine mount bolts first. The bolts are now off the top of the motor mounts. That wasn't terribly difficult. I'll try to give you an idea of how tight the fit is to get this driver's side top motor mount nut. It's not terribly difficult to crack loose, but getting the wrench and all of the extensions down in there is a little bit of a tight fit. So take a look here. You can kind of see the top of the bolt head there. Let's see if I can get my finger on it right at the tip of my finger. So that is where the top nut mounts for that motor mount. I'm not quite sure how I'm going to get the bolt back on there. It might be a little bit tricky, but we'll figure it out. We're gonna go ahead and get the bottom ones off now. So the lower engine mounts came out pretty easy, just takes a little bit of strength to crack them loose. Probably should have used a breaker bar on them, it would have been a little bit easier, but anyways, once they're cracked loose, they just slide right off. So now it is time for the fun part, that is getting the jack under here, and we're gonna lift the engine up and then see if we can pull out those old stock motor mounts. You guys may be wondering if it's safe to jack up the engine on the oil pan here, and yes it is. This thing is a solid cast oil pan, it's not a flimsy aluminum oil pan, so we're good to go to jack up the engine on the oil pan. So we'll slowly give it some pumps here and try to get it raised up. So it appears to be rising okay, but I think I'm gonna lower it and move my jack over just a bit because the engine's wanting to raise up in this direction. So we'll try to center it a little bit more. All right, try that again. All right, so we'll get under here and see if we have enough room. Ugh. So it doesn't quite look like it. The bolt is almost out. Check the other side real quick. All right, the passenger side came right out. Now it's a matter of getting the motor mount out of here. There we go. So we got one of them out. I'm gonna figure out how to get this side up a little bit higher so we can slide the other one out. So we'll try to jack up the engine a little bit more. I mean, it just needs like, I don't know, 1/4 of an inch or so. So we'll see if we can get the car up higher. Problem is now the entire car is jacking up. Alright, so the engine actually won't jack up any higher. I'm actually hitting the top of the firewall in the engine bay. So the engine is as high as it's gonna go, and I still need a little bit of room here on this engine mount to get it out. So I think what we'll do is just drop this little subframe piece here, or this brace. If I remove these two bolts, let's see here, I don't know if you can see those in the camera. There's two bolts right up there that hold that engine mount in place, that's bolted up to the frame. So if I lower those down, that should give me enough room to get that engine mount out. So we're gonna go ahead and do that and see how it works out. think we got it. Holy crap. There we go. Had to pull down on that support member to get it out of there, but we did get it. Alright, so a little bit tricky getting that passenger side motor mount out. I'm not sure how difficult it's going to be getting these new ones in there because the bolts on them are a little bit longer than the stock ones. Let's take a look at the new ones versus the stock ones. So obviously our old ones right here, the stock ones that were on the car, I'm not sure if these are original or not, or if the previous owner had replaced them at some point. And then our polyurethane racing style engine mounts. Now what I'm concerned about is if the new one is actually longer than the stock one. And these things don't exactly stay up straight, but there is this distance here from the end of the bolt to the other end of the bolt that we got to fit in the car. So we're going to jump back under there, try to get these new ones fitted into place. Then we can lower the engine back down and then add the nuts onto the bolts and we should be good to go. Alright, so this is more or less impossible for me to get a camera up in here so you can see where things are going, unfortunately. So you're gonna have to trust me when I tell you what's going on. But basically when we put these motor mounts in, there's a little detent or little alignment nub sticking out right there. And there's a hole in the mount up here, or in the support, where it aligns, and that's how you align the engine mounts into place. So we're going to try to get it up in here and see what happens. I still need like a 1/4 inch of space. So what I did is I loosened up these support brace bolts that are up here. I loosened those up on the other side of the car, and I mean this thing is kind of just hanging here. I think what I'm going to do is just take these out and hope this whole piece doesn't fall out onto my face, because that would suck. Or actually, we've got a lot of room on these bolts. They're pretty long, so maybe we'll save the face and just see if we can pull this thing down. It is pulling down. I don't know if you guys can see that or not, but this unit here is kind of pulling down. And oh man, we're almost there. We literally need like 1/8 of an inch or so. Let's see if we get lucky here. Oh, come on. There, we made it. All right, I'm gonna try to get the camera up in here so you can see what it looks like. Let's see if we can get a good shot. All right, guys, that's what it looks like. This is our lower motor mount bolt right there, where it's in the frame or the frame supports, and the other bolt goes on the other side of that section there, which just blurred out. But hopefully that gives you an idea of how those things go in. Alright, sweet. That wasn't too terrible actually. Now I can go ahead and raise this support back into place. And then we'll get the passenger side done here as well. I'll probably throw that on the time lapse. I threw the passenger side motor mount in real quick because it was super easy. There's really nothing to it. Before I go ahead and lower the engine back down, I'm actually going to torque those subframe bolts that I had taken out a little bit so I could get that passenger side in. The torque spec for those is 56 pound-feet of torque for the M12 style bolt that is in my car. Depending on the size of the bolt, it could be different, so if you're doing this at home, make sure you check the size of the bolt. You can go to realoem.com, check out what your car came with, and then according to the Bentley manual, there's a few different torque settings. I think 56 for mine, and in the 34 or 35 pound-feet range for an M10 size bolt. But make sure you check your bolt if you're doing this job to get the torque spec correct. Now with those guys torqued, we can go ahead and start lowering the engine down. I have to pay attention to the driver's side motor mount because the bolt is not seated through the hole in the engine mount on the engine side. So I gotta lower it slow, make sure that bolt lines up, and then we can get it down and then tighten everything up. There we go. You guys can't see it, but I got the bolt lining up with the hole in the engine mount. Just a little bit of guiding of that bolt through the engine mount hole is really all it took. So we're gonna go ahead and let out the jack, and the engine can come all the way down. Awesome, so now we're actually resting on our new motor mounts. Now it's just a matter of getting the bolts in the top of the car into the motor mount and then torqued down to the 32 pound-feet of torque that we need on those bolts. Alright, the new engine mounts are installed. Those are RevShift polyurethane motor mounts for your E36 BMW. I think they make them for a number of generations of BMWs, but I'm glad that went pretty smooth for the most part. We had to get creative with that passenger side by lowering that subframe brace to get that motor mount to fit, but it all went well without much of a hitch. Alright, next up, I really want to get those transmission mounts replaced as well. What I have is a set of these Rogue Engineering polyurethane transmission mounts, and this should be pretty simple. I just have to lower the transmission support brace while supporting the transmission with a jack. The only problem is I think I might have to take off part of my exhaust to get to one side, but we're going to get under there and check it out real quick and see if we can get this knocked out as well. Alright, so we can definitely get these transmission mounts done as well. It's pretty simple. I do have to drop this exhaust pipe right here, basically the mid pipe portion. So I got to drop this brace, which is just 2 bolts. The bolts from the headers where the merge pipe connects to the header, and this mid pipe, and then the V-band back here, I can drop that out. After that, it's just 4 bolts pulling the transmission brace out and replacing the transmission mounts themselves. I'm going to flip on the time lapse for this one just because I need to get this done fast. I'm taking the car into the shop tomorrow. Like I said, I got the trailer out front so we can tow it up there, but let's get going and get these transmission mounts installed. Alright guys, gonna give you an awkward update from under the car. Let you know where we stand. We've got the transmission brace off. That's this dangling thing right here. As you can see, everything came out pretty easily actually. There's nothing stuck or bolts that were seized up. But this is our transmission mount. Let's see if I can get the light better. Whoa, get it in the face. So these are the transmission mounts right here. These little rubber guys are the transmission brace supports, and these are our aftermarket ones we are replacing it with. So we'll basically take these guys and they'll sit up here in place of the stock ones, and pretty much everything goes back together as it came apart. It's pretty simple. And I also forgot, I had down in my basement in my long lost list of upgrades for this car that hadn't been put on, I've got a straight pipe to put on. Actually, it's a resonated straight pipe right here. And that will actually replace the high flow cat that I have up in here now. That guy there, actually, that is the tiny little catalytic converter. But since this is a track car, I don't actually need that anymore. So I'm gonna swap in the resonated straight pipe and then get the rest of this put back together. Fortunately, that pipe has V-bands on each end of it, which makes it real easy to remove and reinstall. I had it done that way when I had the exhaust installed, knowing that eventually this car would probably become a track car. So that's working out. We're gonna swap these transmission braces here, or the transmission mounts, transmission brace mounts, if that's not confusing enough, and then get everything put back together. Alright everybody, I think we are about done. We got the engine mounts in, the transmission mounts in, we also have the resonated mid-pipe in. We have one more thing left to do. This might be the trickiest job of the night. Let's finish it off here. Alright, so there we go, finishing off the day with AKG Motorsports tow hooks. I have this one for the rear as well. I'll slap that on a little bit later. Alright, now that we have everything on the car, there's only one more thing to do, and that is test out the ride, see how things feel now that we have the new engine mounts on and the new transmission mounts. And who knows, maybe that resonated mid-pipe will be a little bit louder too. So we're gonna get this thing down on the ground, take it for a spin around the block. I'll let you know how the car feels. Alright, so it's a cold morning. We're gonna take the thing for a spin around the block real quick. Now, when you replace engine mounts and transmission mounts with units that are stiffer or more solid than the stock one, really what you can expect to happen is that there's gonna be more feedback in the chassis, in the steering, in the seat of your pants, and basically you just feel more throughout the car. So we'll go ahead and get rolling off here. And actually the exhaust is a bit quieter than it was with the high flow Cat on, surprisingly. Probably because it's a big resonator now. So it definitely have a little more vibration in the rear end, actually, probably from the transmission mounts. I feel like the power through the driveline is a little more direct. It's hard to explain. Really, it's just a little more vibration and, like I mentioned, a little more feedback. And really, we'll find out how this makes a difference when we're on the track. So yeah, I can definitely feel it when I start letting the clutch out and getting the car rolling as the power is just starting to transmit through the transmission. The new transmission mounts, I don't know if it's just the transmission mounts or the engine mounts as well. But that's the most noticeable thing so far. Do another stop and go here real quick. Yeah, I can't say it's a huge improvement. It's definitely noticeable. Everything just feels more solid and in place as you start accelerating. At any rate, it will be a good upgrade for the longevity of the motor mounts and the transmission mounts versus the old stock ones, which are rubber, and the stock motor mounts are actually filled with fluid and they wear out and fall apart over time. So these ones should last quite a while. Yeah, there, even at idle, I don't know if you guys can hear it, but the car is shaking more, shaking and vibration, just idling here at a standstill. We're gonna wrap this one up today. Thanks again, everybody, for watching. I really appreciate it. If you have any thoughts or comments, like always, leave them down below. I would love to hear from you. As I mentioned earlier in the video, we're gonna get this car into the shop, have it inspected, make sure it is race ready, and then continue the project path for that car towards time trials next year. I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to working on the car some more. It should be really fun. Hope you guys are enjoying the video as well. So remember, stay fast out there, and I will talk to you all next time.